I don't remember what we were talking about before she dropped it. Maybe something small. A joke about the music or how the evening had gone too long. Then the sound came, soft and metallic. A single earring hitting the wooden floor. She bent down first. I followed instinctively. The room was dim, just the amber spill of a lamp, dust floating in its light. Her perfume, faint vanilla, something deeper underneath, hung between us. I saw her hand brush over the rug, then stop, trembling just slightly when our fingers touched the same patch of carpet. "Sorry," I said. She smiled but didn't look up. "Don't be." Her voice had that quiet steadiness, calm, but not cold. The kind that made you want to lean closer to catch every word. I found the earring first, lying beside her heel. Small gold hoop. Nothing special except that she looked at it like it meant something. "Got it," I said, holding it up. Her eyes lifted to mine. They stayed there a little too long. "Keep looking," she said. I frowned, half laughing. "I think that's the only one." She tilted her head. "Maybe." That's when the silence came. Thick but not awkward. I could hear the low hum of the fridge in the next room, the faint sound of her breathing. She hadn't moved away. Her knee was inches from mine. It wasn't supposed to feel like that. A rush, quiet but unmistakable. I tried to focus on the floor again, to act like I didn't feel it. But she did. She had to. She leaned back on her hands, watching me pretend to search. The lamplight caught the soft lines at the corners of her mouth. Not age, but history. "You don't have to keep pretending," she said finally. I sat back too. "Pretending what?" "That you're still looking." I smiled a little too quickly. "You told me to." She exhaled through her nose, slow. "I did." Something flickered across her face then. Amusement maybe, or something heavier. Couldn't tell. She looked tired in a way that wasn't about sleep. "You really think I dropped it on purpose?" she asked. I didn't answer right away. My pulse was loud in my ears. "Did you?" She didn't say no. For a moment, I forgot how young I must have seemed to her. The way I kept searching for the right thing to say, as if words could make sense of what was happening. She didn't fill the silence either. She just sat there, eyes on me, legs folded neatly, one hand resting near the earring I'd placed on the rug between us. When she finally spoke, her voice was quieter. "You remind me of someone." "Someone you knew?" Her gaze softened. "Someone I almost let matter." The words landed between us, heavy. I wanted to ask what that meant, but something in her face warned me not to. Instead, I reached for the earring again. My fingers brushed her wrist. Warm, steady. She didn't pull away. "Guess I should give this back," I said. She looked at my hand, then up at me. "Maybe later." There was nothing left to find on that floor, but neither of us moved. The light had shifted, dimmer now, more shadow than glow. She leaned slightly forward, just enough for me to notice the scent of her hair, the tiny silver threads that caught the light. And then a sound, a sharp knock on the door. She froze. So did I. Her hand slipped away first. "Stay here," she said, almost a whisper. But she didn't look back as she walked to answer it. And I realized I was still holding the earring. The knock on the door turned out to be nothing. A neighbor asking about a package. She handled it quickly, her voice composed, her expression unreadable. But when she closed the door again, something between us had shifted. I was still sitting on the rug, the earring in my hand. She looked down at me, quiet for a second, then smiled, small, restrained. "You really didn't have to stay. I wasn't sure if you wanted me to go." Her eyes flicked toward mine at that, just briefly, then away. "I didn't say that." She walked past me to the small kitchen counter, where 2 half-empty glasses of wine waited. I hadn't noticed how late it was until I saw the window's reflection, night thick and still. "I used to lose things a lot," she said. "Keys, rings, earrings. My ex used to say it was symbolic." "Symbolic of what?" "That I wasn't paying attention." She laughed softly, almost to herself. "He wasn't wrong." I wanted to ask more, but the way her shoulders stiffened told me not to. She turned around and leaned against the counter, crossing her arms. "You're very young, you know." "I'm aware," I said. "That's not an insult." Didn't sound like one. Her mouth curved. It was more of a warning. She said it lightly, but something underneath it ached. Maybe loneliness, maybe self-protection. I didn't know her well enough to tell yet, but I could feel the distance she kept building, and the quiet way she kept erasing it again. She handed me one of the glasses. Her fingers brushed mine as she did. It was nothing, just an accident, but I felt it too long after. We stood close now, closer than before. The air between us hummed with a strange, low current neither of us wanted to name. "Do you ever get tired of people assuming they know you?" I asked. She looked at me carefully. "All the time." I took a sip of wine to fill the pause. "Maybe that's why you let me stay." Her eyes softened. "Maybe." She stepped past me to place her glass on the table, and when she turned back, her hand brushed my shoulder. Light, deliberate, just a second longer than it needed to be. "I'm not used to people noticing," she said quietly. "I notice," I said before I could stop myself. She froze, her hand still half raised, eyes flicking to my mouth, then back to my eyes. The silence was loud again. The fridge hum, the faint tick of the clock, the sound of her breath catching once before she spoke. "You shouldn't. I can't help it." Her hand dropped, but she didn't step away. For a moment, neither of us moved. The distance between us became something fragile. Too thin to name, too charged to break. Then she smiled, faint and tired, but not unkind. "You really don't know what you're doing, do you?" "Probably not," I said. "But I know what I feel." She exhaled, part laugh, part surrender. "God help us both," she murmured. And then, just as she turned to walk past me, her fingers grazed the back of my hand. A brief, electric promise of something neither of us had admitted yet. The next time I saw her, it wasn't planned. It was daylight, a Saturday, and she was standing outside the cafe where I worked, sunglasses, hair pinned up, a scarf around her neck like armor. I almost didn't wave. Something about seeing her there, in public, made the whole thing feel fragile, like it belonged only to quiet rooms and half-finished sentences. She noticed me first. "You work here," she said, surprised but not really. "Sometimes." "Then maybe I should order something," she said, voice light but her eyes avoiding mine. She sat at a corner table by the window, and I took her order even though it wasn't my turn. When I set down her coffee, she thanked me softly, fingers brushing mine for a second too long. The same current still there. I walked away before anyone noticed. But they did. My coworker, Jenna, caught the look. "She your mom's friend or something?" she asked, teasing. I didn't answer. When I glanced back, the woman, her, was watching me, unreadable behind the dark lenses. She stayed longer than anyone else. When she left, she didn't say goodbye, just slid a folded napkin under her cup. I found it 10 minutes later. "You missed a spot." That night, she texted, "You overthink everything. Stop." I stared at the screen for a long time before typing back, "You make it hard not to." No reply. 2 days later, she invited me over to return the earring. "The other one," she said. Her tone was casual, but I felt the weight behind it. When I arrived, she was barefoot, her hair loose this time. The air smelled faintly of rain and something floral. A record played low, older music, her kind. "I kept thinking I'd lost it," she said, holding up the matching earring. "Guess I'm good luck." "Or bad," she said, almost smiling. I moved closer to take it, but she didn't hand it over. Her fingers stayed curled around it, brushing against mine. For a second, we didn't breathe. The music clicked softly in the background. A slow, aching piano piece. "You shouldn't be here," she said finally. "I know. But you came anyway." "Yeah." Her hand lowered, still close enough that I could feel the heat of her skin. Then a sound. The sharp vibration of her phone on the counter. She turned away fast, voice dropping to a hush as she answered. "Hi. Yes. I got your message. No, I'm home." Her back was to me, her tone steady, but her fingers twisted in the hem of her shirt. When she hung up, she didn't face me right away. "Who was that?" I asked quietly. "Someone who still thinks they know me," she said. The space between us shrank again, like the air itself couldn't decide which way to move. "I should go," I said. She stepped closer instead, her voice a whisper near my jaw. "Then why aren't you?" I didn't have an answer. We stood there, the distance gone now, her breath against my neck, her hand almost touching my sleeve. For a moment, everything tilted. One heartbeat from crossing a line neither of us could undo. Then she pulled back, eyes lowered, voice trembling just enough to break the silence. "Don't make me forget myself," she said. And yet, she didn't tell me to leave. Rain had been coming down since afternoon. Steady, soft, the kind that blurs the edges of everything. Her apartment felt smaller that night, the windows fogged, lights dimmed low. She'd asked me to help move some boxes, nothing complicated, she said. But I knew it wasn't about boxes. It never was. The air between us was different now, thicker. Every time our hands met on a book, a photo frame, a folded sweater, something flickered. Too much silence, too much almost. She was wearing a loose gray shirt, sleeves rolled up, hair falling over her eyes. I watched her push it back once, then again, fingers shaking slightly. "You're quiet tonight," she said without looking at me. "So are you." She glanced up, smiled faintly. "Maybe we ran out of things we shouldn't say. Maybe we should stop pretending." That made her pause. She set down the box she was holding, straightened slowly, and met my eyes. "Pretending what?" "That this is just nothing. That you don't what?" She interrupted too fast. "Feel it." Her breath hitched, almost a laugh. "You're young. You feel everything too loudly." I stepped closer. "Then why do you keep letting me?" Her lips parted, no words. Just that moment of hesitation that says everything words can't. Lightning flashed outside, a soft white glow through the curtains. For a second, it painted her face in silver. The faint crease between her brows, the shadow of doubt that always hovered there. "You shouldn't want this," she said quietly. "I don't," I lied. She took a step closer. "Liar." My throat tightened. She was so near now I could feel her breath warm, trembling against my skin. "You think this is a game?" she whispered. "No. I think it's the first thing that's ever felt real." Her hand rose, almost involuntarily, brushing the side of my face. Her fingers were cool from the rain, her touch too gentle to mean nothing. I caught her wrist without thinking. Neither of us moved. "You don't understand what you're asking for," she said, voice low, barely steady. "I'm not asking," I murmured. "I'm just here." Her eyes softened, regret, longing, maybe both. She looked at my hand still around her wrist, then at my mouth. Her shoulders eased, a small surrender. And then she leaned in, slow, uncertain, every second stretching thin enough to break. The sound of the rain faded. All that existed was the space between us, shrinking, trembling. I could smell her perfume again. Faint, familiar, heartbreak and warmth. Her forehead brushed mine. "You don't know what this will cost me," she whispered. "I don't care," I breathed. She closed her eyes, one hand against my chest, the other curling in my shirt like she was trying to hold herself still. Her lips barely moved. "Then don't stop." I didn't. And just as the air broke, as everything tilted toward that inevitable moment, a knock came from the hallway. Loud, urgent. Her body went rigid. The space between us shattered. "Don't move," she said, barely a whisper, already pulling away. But her hand lingered on my chest a second longer. One last pulse of heat, one silent promise neither of us could take back. The knock didn't stop. 3 sharp raps, too deliberate to ignore. She went to the door, hand pressed flat against it before unlocking. I could see her breathing, shallow, careful. When she opened it just a crack, a man's voice came through. "Thought you said you'd call me back." Her body stiffened. "I was going to." I couldn't see his face from where I stood, but his tone carried that easy familiarity, the kind that leaves no space for guessing. He took a step forward, voice lower now. You left your scarf in my car. She reached out quickly, taking whatever he handed her. Thank you. Are you alone? Her pause was too long. When she finally answered, her voice was calm, quiet. Yes. My chest tightened. He hesitated. Then, you seem off lately. I'm fine, she said, forcing a small laugh. Really? He murmured something else I couldn't catch, and after a beat, she said goodbye, soft but final. When the door clicked shut, she stayed there, hands still on the handle. I spoke first. Who was that? She turned slowly, her expression unreadable. Someone I should have let go of a long time ago. Your ex. Something like that. I waited for her to explain, but she didn't. She just leaned back against the door, eyes on the floor, arms crossed. I didn't know he still had a key, she said finally. He shouldn't have one. I took a step toward her. He doesn't know about. No, her tone cut through mine sharp, then softer. He can't. Silence filled the room again. Rain tapped at the windows. The space between us was smaller now, but it felt dangerous. Every word edged with something we couldn't name. Is he why you keep stopping? I asked quietly. She looked up, surprised. Stopping what? This. Us. Her throat worked, but no sound came. When she did speak, it was almost a whisper. I never meant for you to mean anything. The words hit harder than I expected. I wanted to step back, to give her room to retreat, but I didn't. Instead, I reached out, brushing her arm. Then why didn't you let me go? Her breath trembled, her fingers tightening against her own elbows. Because I wanted to see if someone could still look at me and not see a mistake. That broke something in me. I stepped closer until our foreheads almost touched. She didn't move away. Her voice was shaky now. You shouldn't have heard that. I think I was supposed to. She let out a breath, half laugh, half sigh, then reached up, almost unconsciously, fingers tracing the edge of my jaw. You make me remember things I buried, she said. And that's not fair to either of us. I caught her hand before she could pull away. Maybe it's the only honest thing we've got. Her eyes met mine, a war of fear and longing. Then she said it. If he finds out, I'll lose everything. The room went still. My voice came out rough. Then maybe we stop pretending we can keep this quiet. Her expression shifted, something like surrender or defiance. She didn't answer, but when she stepped forward this time, there was no hesitation. Her fingers slid against mine, and I felt the decision in that touch. Not words, not reason, just inevitability. The air felt different that night, heavier, charged. The rain had stopped, but the quiet it left behind carried its own kind of pressure. She stood by the window, arms folded, eyes on the city lights. I could see her reflection in the glass, her jaw set, her mouth tense, like she was arguing with herself and losing. I took a step closer. You don't have to keep pretending you don't want this. She didn't turn around. And what happens if I stop pretending? Then at least we stop lying to ourselves. Her voice came softer this time. You think that makes it easier? No, I said. But it makes it real. She finally faced me. The space between us was small, 2 steps, maybe less. Her eyes met mine, raw and unguarded. The woman who always seemed so composed now looked like someone standing at the edge of something she couldn't name. You have no idea how complicated I am, she whispered. Then let me find out. She laughed under her breath, but it wasn't amusement. It was disbelief. You don't understand. This doesn't end cleanly. I've already built a life on keeping things neat. I'm not asking you to ruin it, I said, just to stop hiding from it. She took a slow breath, stepped closer. The air between us thickened. Perfume, rain, static. Her fingers brushed the side of my neck, tentative, like she was testing the idea of touching me. I didn't move. You make me feel young, she said. And that terrifies me. I swallowed hard. You make me feel seen. That stopped her. Her hand froze on my skin, trembling slightly. No one should carry that kind of weight for someone else, she said. Then let me. I whispered. Just for tonight. For a long moment, nothing existed except the rhythm of her breathing and the heat between us. Her forehead leaned against mine, eyes closed. I could feel the tremor in her voice when she spoke again. Tell me this isn't just wanting to be wanted. It's not. She exhaled, a slow, breaking sound. Then, finally, she looked at me. Really looked. Her hand slid to my cheek, thumb tracing the edge of my mouth. You don't know what you're asking for, she said again, but it sounded like surrender. I think I do. The silence that followed was thick, inevitable. I could feel her heart through the small space left between us. Fast, uneven. Then she kissed me. Not careful, not composed, but desperate. Like she'd been holding her breath for years and finally let it out. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't gentle. It was real. When she pulled back, her eyes were wet. Not tears exactly. Just that shimmer of something too complicated to name. We can't undo this, she said. I don't want to. She nodded, barely. Then don't make promises you can't keep. I won't. And in that pause, breath to breath, truth to truth, everything between us finally made sense. Not right, not wrong, just undeniably ours. The city woke up slowly, light filtering through the half-open blinds in long, soft stripes. The rain had stopped hours ago, but its scent still lingered, damp pavement, clean air, the faint echo of thunder somewhere far off. She was sitting by the window again, knees drawn up, wearing the same oversized shirt from the night before. The record had stopped playing sometime in the early hours, leaving only the quiet hum of the world outside. I made coffee. She didn't ask me to, but it felt like the right thing, a small act of normal after something that wasn't. When I handed her a cup, her fingers brushed mine. That same gentle pause, like we were both testing if what happened still existed in daylight. It's strange, she said, staring into the steam. The morning feels heavier after you've done something you can't take back. Regret. She shook her head slowly. No, just reality catching up. I sat beside her, our knees touching. We always knew it would. She smiled, tired but genuine. You sound older today. Maybe I am. We watched the street below. A couple arguing softly. A man unlocking his bike. Someone walking their dog. Ordinary life. And somehow that felt like the most fragile thing in the world. You could still walk away, she said after a while. Before it gets complicated. I looked at her. The way the light touched the edge of her hair. The faint smile lines that deepened when she frowned. It's already complicated. She laughed under her breath, setting her cup down. You always have an answer. Not always, I said. Just this time. Her eyes softened. She leaned her head against the glass. I could see the faint reflection of both of us there, blurred, overlapping. I spent years being careful, she said quietly, making sure I didn't let anyone close enough to notice when I was lonely. You don't have to be careful right now. Her gaze flicked toward me, then down to our hands resting close on the windowsill. She hesitated, then slid her fingers into mine. Slow, deliberate. The warmth of her touch settled something in me, something restless. This isn't a fair story, she said softly. Maybe not, I said, but it's honest. She nodded, eyes glistening just a little. Honest is more than I've had in a long time. Outside, the clouds were breaking, thin sunlight spilling through, turning the glass warm against our skin. She leaned her head on my shoulder, and I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. We didn't need to speak after that. There were no more what-ifs, no more pretending. Just quiet, shared, real, imperfect. When she finally whispered, her voice was calm again. Whatever this is, let's not ruin it by trying to define it. Deal? I said, and kissed the top of her head. A small promise sealed in silence. The city kept moving. The day began. But for that moment it felt like time had agreed to stay still. Just long enough for both of us to believe in something that might last, even if only in the memory of it. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?